In the year 1976, there was a military coup in Argentina that shattered a nation's faith in law and launched a secret war against its own people. On March 24, 1976, a junta of generals swept aside a fragile democracy and declared a national reorganization. The leaders, promising order against a supposed communist threat, moved fast. They created a shadow state, clandestine detention centers, secret lists of opponents, night arrests, and a bureaucratic machinery meant to erase lives without a trace. Students, union organizers, journalists, and suspected leftists simply vanished. Families who went to the police were met with silence. The most notorious of those sites was ESMA, the Navy School of Mechanics in Buenos Aires, where corridors echoed with the screams of those held for weeks, months, sometimes years. Prisoners were interrogated, tortured, cataloged, and then, in many cases, put on transfers that ended in the ocean, sedated, loaded onto planes, and thrown into the Atlantic, the so-called death flights. This was not random brutality. It was organized, bureaucratic, and transnational. Argentina's regime joined a wider network known as Operation Condor, a pact among the military dictatorships of the Southern Cone that coordinated surveillance, kidnappings, assassinations, and the exchange of intelligence across borders. Exiles in neighboring countries were hunted. Dissidents in Europe and the Americas were surveilled. Documents later declassified would show lines of cooperation, clandestine lists exchanged between capitals, and contact with foreign intelligence services who, in the name of anti-communism, turned a blind eye or supplied support. The human cost was immediate and monstrous. Human rights groups and survivors estimate up to 30,000 people were disappeared, dragged into detention, never to be seen again. But statistics can feel sterile against the image of mothers circling a city square in white scarves, their faces weathered by grief and defiance. On April 30, 1977, a small group of women gathered in the Plaza de Mayo, outside the seat of power. They came week after week, demanding to know what had happened to their children. Their names, the mothers of the Plaza de Mayo, became synonymous with relentless witness. One founder, Azucena Villaflor, was herself abducted on December 10, 1977. The very act of asking questions had become dangerous, yet those women continued, turning grief into public memory. Inside government rooms, the operation continued in clinical detail. Lists were drawn up, targets marked, clandestine units dispatched. The conspiracy was not merely of violence, but of concealment. Coffins were falsified, corpses hidden, death certificates altered. A state that promised order had erected a system to deny existence to tens of thousands. The first civic attempt at accountability came in 1985 with the trial of the juntas, a landmark prosecution that brought senior military leaders before the courts. Yet justice proved fragile. Political pressures, amnesties, and pardons in the late 1980s and early 1990s limited immediate consequences for many perpetrators. The families kept pressing, archives were guarded and sometimes destroyed, and the search for truth stretched over decades. The story of Argentina's dirty war is a study in how modern states can weaponize secrecy and the trappings of legality to commit mass crimes. It is also a story of stubborn human resistance, the mothers with their white scarves, clandestine testimonies whispered in exile, and the tireless work of human rights groups piecing together lists, identities, and testimony. By the turn of the millennium, the scars remained fresh. Entire communities bore the absence as sons and daughters. Official records still held gaps, and the debate over memory and justice continued to shape Argentina's politics and institutions. The conspiracy that once functioned in the dark had left a visible ledger of loss that refused to be erased, a testament to the people who disappeared and to those who would not allow them to be forgotten.